So now that we've learned about explicit intents, let's turn our focus to implicit intents, which is one of the most powerful features in Android. But let's just start with an example. So let's go to the emulator, and we're going to launch the gallery application here, which is basically the tool that you use to view the photos that are on your phone. So I'll click gallery, and I have a couple of pictures on there already. And let's say I choose this photo. We can see up here we have this button called share. Well, this allows you to send this photo to somebody else. But there could be many applications on your phone that are capable of doing that. The first one that comes to mind is a text message. The next could be sharing it through Twitter or Facebook or, through an email. So you can have your application be added to that list of applications that can actually handle that type of task. And that's what an implicit intent does. So this gallery application, when I click share, it's actually activating using an implicit intent. It's basically saying, hey, any applications on the system that are capable of sending data, here's an image that I want to send out. It will then present the user with a list of options. Well, here on the emulator, right now, if I click share, there's only one option, which is to send it as a text message. And that's because nobody else on the phone, no other applications, have actually registered to be able to handle that intent. So one thing before we move forward is you're probably wondering, how did I get images onto the emulator? Well, if we go back to Eclipse and go into DDMS, you'll notice one of the tools up here is File Explorer. And this gives you an Explorer view of the actual device. So if we go into Mount, there we see our SD card. And I've put a couple of photos on here that you have in the exercise files in the assets folder. And all you do is to basically click SD card and then click this button over here, which is push a file onto the device. It then allows you to select any file and it will upload it to the device. But let's go back to the emulator here. So again, when the user clicks share, the gallery application is sending out this intent message. So how do we know what the intent message is? Well, that's easy to do because we'll just click it and then go back to Eclipse. And if we look here in Logcat, we can actually see what was sent out when the user hit that. And we can see here this starting intent, and the intent is android.intent.action.send, which is an implicit intent. And we can see that with the actual intent, there's a data type of image JPEG. So again, the gallery is sending out this intent with the JPEG information for any applications that are able to handle it. So let's create an application that can handle that implicit intent. So I've created a blank project here just called implicit intents, and I haven't done anything with it yet. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to be able to register with Android that I'm able to handle that intent. And we do that in the Android manifest file. Now we can see for our one and only activity, which is called main, we already have an intent filter, but this is the one I described to you in an earlier movie. This lets the Android system know which activity to activate when our application is launched. And that's using this action main intent filter. So we're going to add another intent filter, and I'm just going to copy this block and paste it down here. So we can have multiple intent filters. And this is basically advertising to Android that, hey, we're able to handle that intent and that data. So we're going to put in here, this is going to be action send. Now for category, we haven't really talked about categories here. Category is just a way to give additional information to Android about this intent. Traditionally, or in most cases, it's best to just use the default category unless you know that there's a different category that you should use. We're just going to use default here. Now the next thing that we need to add is a data tag. And this is basically telling Android the type of data that we're able to handle with this intent. So you can see one of the properties is MIME type. And this we just pass in a valid MIME type value, which is image /. And remember, we saw that in DDMS. We can put explicitly JPEGs here, or we can just put star to say, hey, we can handle any image types that are on the system. Okay, so just by adding that to our manifest file, now when on the phone or on the device, when the user clicks share or send, we're going to be able to handle that file type in addition to the text messaging application and so on and so forth. So when the image is actually sent from the gallery application, let's go ahead and do something just so we can actually display it. So I'm going to go to my main XML file, which is my layout. I'm going to get rid of that text view. And I'm going to go to images and media, and I'm going to put in an image view. So an image view is just that. It's a component that displays an image. So I'm just going to leave it there at the default location and now go into my Java code. So I'm going to go into main.java. First thing I need to do, again, like we've done before, is to get a reference to that image view component. I'm going to call it IV, and it's going to be find view by ID, r.id. There's that image view. Again, we want to cast it to image view. Okay, so now we actually want to set the image view to the image that was sent to us from the gallery that's actually bundled with the intent. So to do that, we're going to do iv.setImageURI, which is essentially the address to where that image is. So to this, we need to go into the intent object itself to pull out that information. So we're going to say get intent.getExtras. And again, we covered this in the movie about explicit intents. And then we're going to get, and here we're going to use a constant from the intent class called intent extra stream. So basically in the intent objects that's sent to us, we're going to grab out that stream of information, which is actually a URI to where that image file is. Now, one thing, we have a quick fix here. We just need to cast that argument to a URI. Now, remember, we're not doing any checking here. That's basically when we come in, if we launch this application not through the gallery, we're going to want to check for that. But in this case, we're not going to worry about it. So we're going to run this, and let's actually go to the emulator, wait for our application to launch up. And you can see we have an exception. Now, this is actually expected because there is no intent when this was just launched, because the system just launched it. In a real world case, you're going to want to be able to handle your application launching without that intent information. But for now, we're not going to worry about it. Now I'm going to go back to my image. There it is. And now I'm going to click share. And now you can see, instead of going right to the messaging application, we have an option. We can share the pictures via my application that I created called implicit intents, or use messaging. Well, I'm going to use implicit intents, which is our application. And now you can see our application is displaying that photo. So again, you can now understand the real power of Android, whereas all applications run in their own sandbox, we're actually able to share data, to activate each other's components. We just have to set in the manifest file that we're capable of handling different intents.